So as you heard, my name is David Wood. I'm based in London, Europe. You can find me on Twitter as DW2. What I'm going to try and cover in the next 10 minutes is a bit about the organisation which I chair, London Futurists, and a political think tank that I'm also running called Transpolitica. I'm not going to say so much about two other activities in the UK, one being the Transhumanist Party and the other being H+pedia, because Chris Montero, who's coming after me, is going to pick up some of these pieces. But first, I'd like to start with a little bit of history. As a professional futurist, I do believe we can improve our foresight about the future by having better hindsight about the past. So a little hindsight about the past. It's already been mentioned that there was a TransVision in London in the year 2000. So I wondered if anybody here was present. Anders, were you there? Yes. And David, were you part of TransVision in those days? No. Anybody else present in London in City University? It's before the time in which I got involved in transhumanism. But I do notice from the archives there's quite a few of the same themes discussed then as we're discussing now: overcoming biological limitations, benefits as well as dangers, with a little bit more emphasis perhaps on cryonics. And several of the co-organisers of that event were more interested in cryonics perhaps than the other things. So that was the start of the first big transhumanist meeting in the UK. Then there was a bunch of people who would meet fairly regularly over a number of years, organised in a blog called Extra Britannia, and a mailing group, and an organisation called the UK Transhumanist Association, which was where I first came across many of these ideas. And then in 2008, the person running it had a change in his life circumstances. He had family and other things to look after. So everybody looked around for a while and said, who can organise it? And I said, well, I'll do it for a few months. And that was nearly 9 years ago. We set up this newfangled thing called a Facebook group. I'm not sure, this may be one of the oldest Facebook groups dedicated to transhumanism. You can't go back all the way into its history. Facebook changed its format a few years afterwards, but you can see quite a lot of history there. And then there's another newfangled thing called meetup.com, which turned out to be a very good way to get people to come to events. And so over these 9 years, London Futurist has grown in membership quite significantly, up to 7,000 members. And if you go to Meetup's statistics page and you type in Meetups on Transhumanism, this is by far the largest in the world. Although I shouldn't get too pleased, because if you look at the number of active members, it hasn't gone up so much. An active member is somebody who actually has visited the site in the last 30 days. So there's a lot of people who've indicated an interest in futurism, and there's a potential to cultivate that more. Many of the ones who are not visiting the site, at least they get newsletters. I've done 65 newsletters since January 2014, roughly 2 a month. Did one last night as well. And according to Meetup, we've organised 181 meetups over that time, which is roughly once every 17 days. So you get better at it after a while. You get into a momentum, and it's easier to do it. Typical attendance, sometimes nowadays, if I get 40, I'm a bit disappointed. A really good event, if somebody like Anders would come and speak, I hope to get at least 120 there. And we do some larger events too, when we might, maybe over a couple of days, discuss topics and maybe get 200 people. So why do I spend so much of my effort on London Futurists? What's the point of it all? Well, first of all, I do want to raise the calibre of discussions about the future. I hear so many people talking in ill-informed ways about what the future might be. I hear many other people saying it's not possible to meaningfully address the future. It's too unpredictable. Well, I think we can do better than that. In particular, I want to put radical scenarios on the table, not just there might be a new iPhone with a faster processor, but that some of the topics we've been discussing in this meeting so far today should be viewed. I also want to put transhumanist possibilities on the table. So it's not just about we'll have more gadgets, but actually we can evolve the human species. And many of the other meetups around London, they may talk about the future from time to time, but I'm trying to bring in this possibility. And last, to emphasize that these changes actually have to overcome social and political friction, otherwise they may not happen in a very positive way. So I think many of the discussions that are taking place more widely in London and Europe have been influenced by the quality of discussions we've had in these 181 meetups. It's not just about building a set of discussions, it's about a community of people. And I think one reason why people come back to London Futurist meetups is they find a whole bunch of fellow travellers, people who are willing to go beyond the normal comfort zone. So that helps. I try to record and distribute videos of the meetups. That's quite a lot of time as well. Anybody who's edited videos of 2-hour-long meetings knows it's not something you can do straight away, but it helps to spread the word too. And wherever I travel in the world, I usually get somebody coming up and saying, "Thank you for doing these videos, I really do watch them." I say, "Do you really watch a 2-hour-long video?" And they say, "Well, yes, maybe at 1.5 speed up." Anyway, so that's the past. How I want to evolve this. I want to emphasize, again, bringing transhumanism's ideas back into the picture. I haven't quite decided yet, but I am thinking of doing an event in March, an all-day-long event, in which we'll have transhumanism as the key topic, with the section on the technology of transhumanism, then the philosophy of transhumanism, then the politics of transhumanism. It depends how the discussions here today go, but that's my current intention. And I might bring back some of the hangouts on air that I did in the past, which also take a lot of effort, and so I stopped doing that, but I think it's maybe time to broadcast them as well. So that's London Futurist, which isn't nominally a transhumanist society. It's got, in its interests, transhumanism, the same as it's got life extension, and it's not particularly a political organisation. So about 3 years ago, several of us came to the view that we needed to create something more explicitly transhumanist and more explicitly political. And so that's where this Transpolitica comes in. And I've designed it in some ways in parallel to transhumanism. Transhumanism H+ anticipates tomorrow's humanity, thinking ahead about how future intelligent life might be in a positive way and trying to accelerate reaching these, whilst at the same time being aware of the bad things that might happen. There's my simple definition of transhumanism, and Transpolitica is meant to do the same thing with politics, to look ahead to how we could have a better politics, a better social structure, to echo the conversation this morning, how we could do not just super longevity, super intelligence and super well-being, but also super society. What would that be? There's the vision. How might we get there? That's the roadmap. And last but not least, what might go wrong? What do we want to avoid? There's the anti-vision. Now that organisation was created more or less the same time as the Transhumanist Party UK was founded. And in fact, both groups were involving many of the same people. We weren't quite sure what we needed to do. We saw that there was more discussion around the world about the possibility of transhumanists getting involved in politics. We didn't know what was the right thing to do. Should we make our own party so that we could stand candidates in elections? Or should we instead just aim at raising the level of transhumanist political ideas in a way that people in all other parties could benefit? And we didn't know which was the right approach, and so what you experiment. So we've done both, and we did, the party did stand one candidate in one election, didn't get very many votes. You know, in Britain we've got a first past the post election system. You don't get into Parliament unless you get a huge number of votes, and so it's unlikely anytime soon that that will be a practical approach. But we might still split up work in this way. The Transpolitica will develop a set of ideas, and the party members who like to be knocking on the doors, and some people enjoy that kind of thing, some people live to do street marches and so on, they might conduct campaigns based on some of these ideas. Now that we talk about developing the ideas. So we formed this in January 2015, and to my shock, When I look back at what we actually did, we actually finished writing a book in just 2.5 months. March 2015 with chapters from 10 different authors. And we weren't quite satisfied with that, so we did another book in another 3 months with 11 groups of authors. So that's pretty remarkable. But I have to say, these books did not change the world. They are not bestsellers, you know. If I look back at them now, there's good essays in them, but something different is needed to change the world. And maybe we should have marketed them more, maybe we should have gone knocking on doors and said, have you read this book? Actually, I think what's missing is a joined up single line of thinking. You can have lots of individual essays which contribute, but there needs to be a manifesto which hangs together. So that's what I've been trying to do myself over the last 12 months. I say 12 months, I'd hoped to have it finished in 3 or 4 months, but I've been distracted. But the goal is that I will finish a book by the end of this year called Transcending Politics, a technoprogressive roadmap to a comprehensively better future, in which I start off by saying, there's no escape. If we want a healthier society, we must get involved in politics. I know that many technologists and entrepreneurs don't like to hear that. They just want to get on with developing great technology and building businesses. They want to ignore politicians or send politicians aside. But my view is we have to engage, because otherwise bad politics is going to stop us from being successful. I do believe, as I say in the opening pages of the book, the good news is that better politics is ahead of us, beckoning us forwards, and the key is to apply technology into politics more wisely and more profoundly. It won't happen automatically. The influence of new technology on politics has actually been bad recently because of the impact of social media driving people into more anger and more divisive groups, but we should do it better. And I won't bore you with all the details of what's in each chapter, but I'll just briefly mention there's an introductory section, then there's a discussion of the transformation of work by automation and citizens' income. I then look at the problems of artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things more generally, looking at some of the issues of are we in control of AI or not, or is it in the hands of powerful corporations. I talk about the problems of individual health and individual health systems, when more health systems are running out of budgets, and how it can be transformed by technoprogressive insights. Then I look at the health of the planet, the health of the financial system, the health of the market system, the health of democracy, and the health of international democracy. That's where I've reached now. I'm stuck about 2/3 of the way through that chapter, trying to come up with a good solution for international politics. It's a difficult question. And then finally I'm going to come back to the transhumanist messages that in the end we're going to need better quality people to succeed in this with enhancements. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that's my vision for the future. And I'll give you one more vision for the future, which is a vision for tomorrow, which is I'm going to be taking some of these ideas and offering them up for a wider discussion in a working group, which I'm calling Sharpening the Techno-Progressive Message. And in that working group, I'm going to be asking for the wisdom of the group, which messages are actually the most important ones for techno-progressives going to the political field, which messages should we perhaps avoid, even though we like them ourselves, but maybe they're not so good, which wording should we use, which projects should we prioritize, and so forth. So there's a brief advert about something I'm going to run tomorrow. And that's my introduction from London to possibly a better future of politics. Thanks.